Nagma Murarji, and we have still Professor Siddiq Wahid and Randolph too, who are going to talk. So I would really appreciate if you guys can be patient. And then on top of that, I have a lot of questions from the guests who have been invited. I think if you guys don't mind, I'll let Mr. Sapru, because he has asked to his question to ask a question. If you're there, Mr. Sapru, could you please ask your question, and then I'll hand it over to the guest speaker.
Yeah, thanks. Namaskar and salam to all. I think I have a question itself. Today, most of when we see most of us are talking here of 370 and 35A, it's in the court after 5th of August. So we all have faith in the Indian courts. So let's wait for the court to decide about that, rather than halting everything in the name of 370 and 35A. After abrogation of 370, 35A, center had an intention to build new Kashmir, which was called Naya Kashmir. And that Naya Kashmir outlook was given by our Prime Minister on 8th of August last year, which is based on development, which is based on changing the outlook of the UT. I feel rather than wasting our time on past, which definitely court has to do its justice. And if all of us have faith in that, let's park it for some time and focus on development. Make the government accountable, like Ghazalaji said. There have been a lot of things, 50,000 jobs. It's not only 50,000 jobs. There's a lot of amount which has been committed by government for J&K to transform J&K. Let's make them accountable for that and be a part of that change process. By the way, one more point I wanted to highlight here is 4G. Some of the people talked about 4G restoration. That already is a work in progress. There are some states, some districts where 4G has been allowed. It's a gradual process. Again here, Supreme Court gave a directive to restore 4G district by district. There are some districts which are allowed, some districts are not allowed. It's a slow and steady process. So we have a light here. Yeah, let us support that light and move on from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sapru. Appreciate your views. We have Mr. Siddiq Wahid. He has to leave by 11. I would appreciate if Nagmaji, Mr. Kak, and Randolph, you can be a little more patient. Like to bring Mr. Siddiq Wahid. It becomes more important right now for him to speak, especially we have a lot of, we see a lot of escalation in the region between India and China over the Ladakh region. So we'd like to hear from him what are the ways forward he sees for Kashmir. He is an academician, like I said, and he is taught at Harvard. Very accomplished person. Mr. Siddiq Saab, if you're still there, like to hear you and your views. Siddiq Saab, you're mute. You're on mute. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. I'm sorry to have interjected, but I had slotted only 2 hours because webinars, sometimes tend to go on. But thank you for inviting me. I am very happy to participate. I was struck by the title, The Way Forward, because it was exactly 25 years ago. And I remember that title very well, that I attended my first seminar on Kashmir, and where I met Amitabh Mattu, my very dear friend. And so I remember that date so well, 25 years ago in Delhi in 1995. And we are still looking for a way forward, which I find sometimes very frustrating and things sitting in Kashmir. The other thing I just want to put two things I'm sorry. I think there's voices over here. Can the things be muted,
Yeah,
non-speakers?
if you
Because
guys don't mind, yeah, I appreciate if you can mute yourself. If you're not speaking, I would appreciate that. Sorry, Lisa.
yeah. Okay. So I want to put on the table a bias, of mine, and that is that my views changed dramatically after August 5th, 2019. And one of the, and it took a year to evolve, almost a year, I would say about 9 or 10 months. And, I suddenly started to realize that there are only 2 areas in which we can profess activism regarding the J&K dispute. And the 2 areas are, one, within the state of J&K, the former state of J&K. And I would even go so far as to say the entire erstwhile state of J&K, including AJK on the other side of the line of control, and of course, Gilgit-Baltistan and things. And the other arena that we can sort of look to interjecting on the J&K dispute is the international arena, and the global field. So it is against that for this presentation of 5 minutes or so, what I asked was 2 questions. And you will realize why the questions are biased, because it has to do with my bias to begin with. One is that I think we need to sincerely ask ourselves, can India and Pakistan find a bilateral solution for Kashmir anymore? Number 1. And number 2, what specific role can regional or multilateral players do to break up the logjam? And I will try and answer that to the best of my ability within, the 5 minutes by focusing on the way forward rather than the way back or the present, which are necessary. I'm an historian by training, so it's very necessary. But I think that those have been spoken about, including in real-time traffic jam situations, etc. So let me go on. Can India and Pakistan find a bilateral solution for Kashmir anymore? It's a very real question that I think we have to pose to ourselves. There's no gainsaying that India and Pakistan have to be involved. I mean, because they have territories, that are between them. They have to somehow talk and be mature, is my usual saying, and start to talk. But can they resolve it? And my answer is a resounding no. They cannot. And they cannot resolve it for 4 reasons that I'm going to put before you. Reason number 1, it's been 73 years. I mean, these are independent sovereign countries with, a population of, including both, 1.45 billion people. And they've not been able to put a solution in front of us. What does that say? What does that say about talent? What does that say about sincerity? And what does that say about political will? I don't think they have it. And so therefore, something has to happen, in order to break the logjam. The second reason is that because it is never been and is not a bilateral dispute. It is, at the very least, a trilateral dispute, because the erstwhile state of J&K is involved, whether you like it or not. I mean, it's involved because of all the historical idiosyncrasies and legal ambiguity. So you can't just wipe that away and say, okay, now this is it, and we're going to resolve it on that basis, because that has its own consequences, which, if I have time, I'll mention. Third, and the third reason why I think they can't resolve it is because even in 1962, there was a quadrilateral hint when China invaded and there was a war between India and China. That war was actually over territory that belonged to the J&K state. and which is now with them. And I'm talking about Aksai Chin and Shaksgam Valley, not to mention their intrusions into Gilgit-Baltistan in the name of development or whatever it is. You know, so they're involved now. You know, so you have a quadrilateral situation. Finally, and the fourth reason is that today is very different from 1947, is very different from 1990, you know, and I would say is even very different from 2019, August. Because I think that we have the capacity, I think many people will bear you out if you come and visit in Kashmir. We have the capacity to speak for ourselves. And we must be allowed to speak for ourselves, not off of the crumbs that are going to come off of the table, at the high table, so to speak, of negotiations, but for ourselves at the very get-go. So that for the question of, my answers for the question of, can it be solved bilaterally? The second question that I posed was, what specific role can regional and multilateral players play in order to free the logjam? Well, I mean, I think the latest opportunity presented itself in 1990, or between 1990 and 92, when the Cold War sort of regime collapsed, and it was not entirely coincidental, I think, that Kashmir also sort of blew up around that time, and things. And I think that that is something that we have to keep in mind. The immediate speculation was in the 1990s that, hey, this is going to be a unilateral or a, sort of unipolar world led by the United States. It didn't happen, for whatever reasons. The second opportunity presented itself more or less after 9/11 or 2001, when, I think fallaciously, two wars were started. A war was started in the Middle East, and in Afghanistan, which turned into a quagmire, and as a result of it, the US lost its agency in this area. By in this area, I obviously mean in Asia, South Asia, and that area. And so therefore, there was another opportunity for something to happen. And if you remember very clearly, it was between 2002 and 2004 that a lot of things happened, and people were hoping, a lot of people were hoping. So that didn't take place, So what can the regional and multilateral players do? Because I think that it has now gone back to becoming a bipolar world. And the bipolar world that we are speaking about is the United States and China, which is the dominant power in Asia. There's no, this is not a speculative sort of statement. It's real. They're here. I call it, having the dragon at the gates. And I think that the world community needs to make sure, the international community needs to make sure that we don't sink back into a bipolar world, because it was precisely the bipolar world that we got stuck in, we meaning the J&K state, got stuck in without resolution. Secondly, I think that they can make it a point, the international community should make it a point to allow the two sides of the line of control to meet and talk to each other, and other people within within talk to each other. Because listen, the world has changed, and so have we. On all sides of the line of control in all little communities over here, we've changed, and we've changed dramatically. And I think that that sort of flow needs to be given. And other than that, let me see what my third point was on this. And, allow for a diverse humanity of 2 billion people. I'm referring to South Asia as a whole. 2 billion people to have some saliency in the world. Because if you look back today, India and Pakistan have become big players for the United States and China. Do we want this for a population of 2 billion? I'm putting together, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sikkim, Bhutan, you know, and Sri Lanka, all of this. This is a massive sort of slaughter of humanity. And where do we talk about it? I mean, this is much bigger, much more powerful, much deeper than anything that the European Union is. You know, and we have no salience. So I think that this, and I think that finally to conclude, I think that China, with its attack again in the Ladakh area, has presented us with an opportunity, because now the elephant in the room is being recognized. And somehow when China talks, everybody seems to listen, you know, and sit down and talk, just like Delhi is talking today, you know, day in and day out, to try and resolve the border issue. Well, I think it's a much bigger problem than the border issue. And I think that it also plays into J&K's state. So I think with that thing, I just want to conclude also by thanking you for inviting me. I think that international fora, you represent an international fora. So I think, forum. So I think that it's wonderful that you've taken it on. I would just say that your task is now starting to, you know, sort of exponentially grow. And I hope you continue this dialogue, hone it, and somehow present it as a series of you know, discussions which, you know, or dialogues which must then conclude with presenting something to the world. I think that will be acceptable to everybody. I thank you for that. As I said, I slotted 2 hours, so I will have to check in literally check out, sorry, in literally 4 minutes, which is regrettable because I think the question and answer sessions are the most telling in these environments. And I'm sorry that I will have to miss that, it sounds like, but I'll catch up. Muzaffar Saab, who's a dear friend, and I will meet and I'll catch up and extract from him what has happened so far. I thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Wahid. You cannot leave without listening to Ms. Nagma and Randolph. They're going to be pretty upset.
I have to be somewhere else. But anyways, I'll listen.
No. I mean, we already lost Mr. Kapil Kak. He had to run. I don't have his number. So I see.
I do. I can give it to you if you want to harass him.
No. Nagmaji is already getting upset. So I think you should bring her on. So Nagmaji, please. We have a lot of people asking questions patiently, but